So I will say the other thing about this is I don't approach this as a traditional podcast where I have some canned intro about who you are and then welcome you and you talk about your experience and stuff like that. These are just conversations that happen to be recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we already started. So go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm really grateful to be here. I feel like having local UX community members in Portland is really special. And I think just like with the entire like geopolitical landscape of what's happening, the importance of just like knowing both like your neighbors, knowing your community members, knowing like your colleagues. I feel like there's just like a lot of power in connection itself. And so I'm really glad to be here with you, Matthew.
Well, thank you very much. Jessica, is it? Yeah. I'm kidding. It's funny you say community because those assholes, no, I'm kidding. I find this, one, I agree with you. Two, I find this UX broad umbrella term. I find this UX community to be really weird and fractured and fiercely independent. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And I'm wondering, like, for you, are there aspects that you connect with more locally?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question.
Let's keep in
Yeah.
mind my researcher hat was not on and that was heavily biased and I called everybody assholes. And so, it's,
Mm. I would say, okay, so my short answer would be no. And I feel like the reason is that, well, one thing is I moved from Northeast Portland to Southwest Portland. And so I feel like I'm less in
oh,
like, I know I'm feel like I'm on the outskirts of Portland. Whereas in the past, like I think even before, like pre-pandemic, I was hosting, like there were UX meetups at my house. There was this like
mm-hmm,
monthly potluck for a while and like we rotated to different people's houses. And I feel like that was just an artifact of like both pre-pandemic and when I lived in that part of town. But in
mm-hmm,
2021, when I moved to Southwest, um, I stopped doing stuff like that. And the other thing is that I picked up new hobbies that started taking up a lot of my time. And I feel like they've made me a better UX person. But I think that like this is kind of me coming back to more of like the local UX community being like, oh my
mm-hmm.
gosh, like I've been on an adventure and I have like some stories to tell.
I want to hear those stories.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned trackers. So first off is, do we need to establish a blood circle?
Oh gosh. I don't think
Because
so.
my kid went to trackers, so I know what a blood circle is. Do not Google blood circle if you're watching this. No, we'll explain that later.
Um, let's see. I, yes, so I got really into the adult immersion program for Trackers Portland. If there's people who aren't Portland parents who are listening to this, Trackers is like an outdoor education school and it's very popular with children. And I signed up for their adult program where like one weekend a month for 9 months. I went out to their location in Sandy, or we also had a snow survival weekend on Mount Hood. And then we had a clamming weekend out at the coast. And the idea was that you would get foraging skills and shelter building skills and just a whole range of um, like survival skills, but also ancestral skills. They started
Mm,
teaching things like how to build your own atlatl and then practicing, like you would make your own weapons. We also butchered animals together to like get that experience. So there was quite a mix of skills and, um, and I got really like I think it really like profoundly changed me as a person. And now I go to like an ancestral skills gathering once a year every summer with my kid. And I think it just has really like changed my orientation to like life generally in the Pacific Northwest. Like I was someone
Hmm.
who I didn't own any camping equipment myself before this program, and now I'm the person that has so much camping equipment I can lend it to other people. So I think it's also like impacted the way that I am a UX researcher as well, which I think is part of like why I'm back on the podcast. But there's just been like a lot of like just learning more skills about how to like be more in my body and be more like attuned to like picking things up, like learning the lessons locally after being like a somebody who's like lived almost entirely in my mind for so many years.
Yeah. So what is one of the ways you've seen that showing up in your work?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think there's just certain lessons that I take from my trackers instructors, and then they translate really well to other parts of my life, like in my work. Like one is perfectionism will literally kill you. Like when we were doing our snow survival weekend, um, there's you'll never build a shelter that's like absolutely perfect, and you're if you are trapped on Mount Hood.
Hmm.
And so you really just need to get something that's going to be good enough. And it's never going to be perfect, but you will burn so many calories that trying to make it perfect that it will make it even harder for you to survive. And so I just have like, like being out in situations where there's relatively limited food and water. It's not like we were ever like really struggling for anything. And for most of the weekends, like, clean water was on tap. But like it just really changed my orientation to being like, oh my gosh, this is like on the day that we were butchering sheep, it took so much effort to get like the meat ready and like prepared and eat it for dinner. And it was like 10 people. We were all working together, and it was a lot of hard labor. Like I worked so much harder that day compared to like any other day that same month at my job. And I think it just gave me a much greater appreciation for like, oh my gosh, like having like access to food is amazing. And like
Hmm.
having
Yeah.
access to so many like resources to nourish me is amazing. And then when you're in situations where like, oh, like I need to decide and like make trade-offs, I like am much more willing to make those trade-offs, and I'm not willing to like, stay up late to try to like make something perfect. I'm like, no, like my resources are limited, they're precious, and yeah, like at some point I really need to call it. So I feel like if I'm a perfectionist about like trying to finish a UX research report, that's probably okay. Like it's not like it's really going to kill me, but I do take it into consideration. Like in other situations, like perfectionism can be really, really harmful. So that's
Hmm.
one thing that has stuck with me is like how do I be more strategic in my resources and be able to like really take care of myself over a long period of time?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, so like my kid did trackers for, I don't know, probably no, not 7 years, maybe 6 or 7 years. And, we did stuff with the organization, and, I think for the kids, sometimes to make it fun, they would put things in terms of like, hey, we're doing a zombie survival weekend. And I think sort of contextualizing it a little bit in that sort of survivalist mentality, but I think the practical skills that were taught were really more about helping the individuals become more capable humans, and also understanding what limits they can push and what limits they can't, at that time at least, push. And so to hear you talking about that, and like how much energy am I really going to put into this versus the reward that I'm going to get out of this, versus what am I going to lose if I put this much energy into this thing that I can't then put to this other thing, and I'm going to use my words to describe this, so you correct me if I'm off, but it sounds like part of what it helped you do is take care of yourself better,
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
and recognize that you need, like, you deserve that.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah, it also like helped me understand like what are my own limits. Because if we were like out in the forest all day, like if there were like 10 or 12 of us there as the adult students, like I have relatively less stamina compared to the rest of the group. And even though like I'm healthy, it's just like it's really, really a rigorous thing. So I have
Mm-hmm.
much more appreciation for like, oh, like some people just naturally have more stamina than other people. Like also like I don't want to compare myself to other people because like some of the people who were in my program, they're part of like Mount Hood Search and Rescue. And so they are
Right.
the people that get called if somebody gets lost in Mount Hood National Forest. So yeah, like of course, like they have like amazing training and or sign up for like very strenuous, high pressure
Mm-hmm.
situations. So I think like I have a much greater appreciation for just like where are my talents, and where, and like I would just say stamina is not one of those. But it also changes also how I watch TV. Like for example, like have you seen Fallout on Amazon?
Mm-mm.
Oh, like it's
I
the
know what it
premise.
is, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so the premise is it's like nuclear fallout. And like the character Lucy is like walking in the desert for days and she looks great and I'm like, no.
yeah, yeah.
Like I was like, I would die after like half a day.
Well, every
Um
mile or so, when you've got hair and makeup touching you up, you
yeah.
can do it. You know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I think Fallout is even less realistic. After this, there was one other thing that I was going to say, which is another very Portland thing that I did in 2023 was I joined the neighborhood emergency team, which is run by the
Mm-hmm.
Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, and that's like a whole other sort of training where they really emphasize just getting to know your neighbors and essentially being ready for like in case the subduction earthquake comes and like Portland would not have communications for a while, and essentially like first responders might not be able to like reach everyone for 2 to 3
Mm-hmm.
weeks. And so the idea of this is it's funded by FEMA, and they just give like normal people in Portland like some training, some education, and then it's basically just like form a neighborhood emergency team. And so I've gotten to know so many of my neighbors through this way. And it's really, really wonderful. The idea is that you just kind of spontaneously like hang out with your other neighbors and you're like, hey, I'm doing this. Like this training happens twice a year. It's free. If you, so, that's the other thing. Like there's a more, I think that like doing the survival skills and understanding the importance of like having having a group of people and everybody has different strengths, and seeing that outside of work, outside of a work culture, has like made me more interested in like building that in my own neighborhood, and just realizing like, oh yeah, like we are really all going to need each other in the event of the earthquake, and we're all going to need to like share resources with each other. And this was like, this goes back to what you were saying about like self-care, because it's like formally part of the FEMA training for these neighborhood emergency teams that like they tell you you need to like get 8 hours of sleep every night because you never know when an emergency will happen and when, you might not sleep for a week. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's like formally part of the training. And I really appreciated that because I always thought like, oh, like I'll be able to sleep this weekend if I stay up late 2 or 3 nights in a row. And like they don't have that
Yeah,
orientation. They're like,
yeah,
no, you you
yeah,
might be doing something else this weekend unexpected.
yeah, yeah. Last week, I think starting on Sunday, from Sunday to Wednesday, I think I got about 6 hours of sleep And one night I got 1 hour of sleep. And so just to illustrate where my brain was at the end of that, on Wednesday, I was standing in the kitchen and my wife walked past me and I said, can I have a hug? And then we were talking. She was sitting on the couch and I was like, she didn't give me a hug. And I said,
Oh,
can I get that hug? Because you didn't give it to me. She looked at me. She was like, yes, I did. And I'm like, that happened 30 seconds ago and I have no memory of it whatsoever.
mm,
And I'm not in a crisis mode. I'm just dead tired. And so, yeah, please get sleep is what I'm saying.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to take
It's
my
really
own
important.
advice, but obviously, but because I enjoy that. Yeah. Yeah. I was
Well,
even like backing my car up. And there was this moment where I couldn't tell if the car in front of me was moving forward or if I was moving backward. And I was just like, I'm not driving. I'm not driving.
that's a good choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
our brains are so reliant on sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you have someone to like give you good hugs, multiple times
Well,
a
I didn't
day.
say they were good hugs. No, sorry. I'm contractually obligated to state that they were very good hugs.
Well, it's like it's interesting. Like we're talking about these emergency situations, and I feel like there's one other thing about like the emotional management that I learned that's coming up for me, which is one of my teachers was always saying it's okay to panic. Like he
Hmm.
never had this attitude like don't panic. He just said, in a situation like if you're like really feel like your life is at risk, you will panic and just accept that that's normal and it's totally okay. And the most important thing in that moment is to sit down
Mm-hmm.
because if you're in a survival situation, like you really need to be careful of your calories. And if hikers are lost, like sometimes they'll get lost like 30 feet off the trail. And if they would
Mm-hmm.
just like sit down, search and rescue could find them. But like there's examples of hikers who like, wandered way too far and search and rescue can't get to them in time. And so that's like the other part that I try to bring with me in other places. Like I don't try to like repress my emotional response of like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. Like I'll just be like, oh, like this is a nightmare. I'm going to accept this. Because I
Yeah.
think this does apply to work situations or, like parenting situations or like there's all these things that happen that are outside of our control. And I think my response in the past would be like, okay, everyone, like, don't panic. Like, and now I'm much more
Right.
like, oh, like, let's just acknowledge we're all panicking, and
Mm-hmm.
after we sit down, like, then we can make a plan. But I used to just as like a very mind driven person in the past, I would just completely bypass everything and go into like planning mode without making space for the actual feeling. And yeah, like our bodies get activated and we feel these things. And
Right.
it
Right.
doesn't matter if it's like, like yeah, it's like fear is fear. So just trying to make space for all of the fear, no matter where it's coming from. It
Yeah. If you
doesn't just
got that
have to be fear from the
adrenaline,
mountain lion. Yes, the adrenaline.
yeah, like you've got the adrenaline going, like you're probably potentially not making good decisions, not listening, your ability to cogitate. Sure. So that's a word. Just didn't sound right. Diminishes. And so why not take a moment to be, yeah, let's freak out for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just low level, you know,
Yeah.
even if it's a basic work meeting and bad news was delivered and maybe you as a leader, not you as a leader, I'm not picking on you, but like one as a leader can say, all right, for the next 10 minutes, let's just sit here. If you want to talk, you want to talk. We can talk. We can cancel this meeting. This goes back to my line of there's no such thing as a design emergency, right? So, but the other thing that I haven't figured out how to make so insanely quotable is that certainly through the research that I've done, particularly in healthcare, that has very much informed my perspective that humans are really good at filling space with anxiety. And so, you might get bad news in a meeting at work, and it isn't the same as, hey, I'm 30 feet off the trail and I can't figure out which way to go. But your body doesn't know that. And it will act essentially the same in both of those situations, and not making space for that, not having an understanding of that is unhelpful, I think. So I'm glad that you've had those experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think we're really making the same, like we're coming to the same point around fear, and how like our bodies just know the fear. They don't know the why behind it always. So yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, like I'm a very slow learner. Like I think maybe some people went to Boy Scouts, or I guess they're called Scouts now, and got these lessons as kids. And feel like, no, I'm like, I lived in Portland for like 8 years by this point when I signed up for the classes. And I was like, I
Mm.
really should learn more about the location that I'm at. And I think I just had this very, I think even for like trying to learn outdoor skills, I took a very academic approach. Like I took a very like, oh, it's a 9-month program. It'll be 1 weekend a month. And like, here's the supply list. And like, this is what I need to bring. And so this is why I feel like I'm a little bit of a slow learner. Like some people would have just like picked this up as soon as they moved to Portland in maybe a more organic way. But I think that
Yeah.
this is just what worked for me.
I I'm convinced that you come to things when you come to them. Like, I'm not accusing you of this, but I feel like you're veering toward shoulding yourself,
Mm.
and you shouldn't. Sorry. Um, sorry, but not sorry. Yeah, we come to these things when we come to them. I
Yeah.
am hate going outside. I find it very uncomfortable. And I think I used to do it a lot when I was a kid, because I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and which is which as I like to describe is it's a city that is in Alaska, and it has ribbons of Alaska that runs through it, but it's a city.
Hmm.
Um, it's not like, wilderness or anything. It's like Portland. It's a city, except, with moose and bears. But yeah, I've never really dug being outside. It's,
Hmm.
uh, it's just not something that I really resonated with, but I was really glad that my kid enjoyed doing it.
Hmm.
Um, so,
That's interesting. I'm curious, like what motivated the move to Oregon?
well, so I grew up in Alaska, and then I did a trip where I ended roughly in Portland. There was a little bit more of the trip, but at the time I was 18, 19, and I was just on my own. Um, and then I went back to Alaska, and then I came back to Oregon for school and met my wife there, and we moved back to Alaska, and then we moved back to Oregon because she was going to go to school, and she wanted to finish her degree, and then we moved to Illinois, and then we moved to Massachusetts, and we kept moving further away from the West Coast, and it didn't feel right. So I guess we just ended up back in Portland because we wanted to live with the conveniences of good food, but not California and not Washington.
Yeah.
So it was it was pretty basic decision making there. But yeah,
Yeah.
and that was what, 13, 14 years ago that we've been here. So
Yeah. I do love Oregon. Yeah, I can understand wanting to come back here from all those other states.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with those states, but
Hmm.
it's like Illinois is just not my, and we were in central Illinois, so it was just really not my thing. And Massachusetts always felt like we were outsiders there. So yeah.
Mm.
Oregon.
So it's I feel like it's rare to run into Oregonians who say like the outdoors is not their thing. So I'm curious, like where is your place? Like where are the places that you feel most at home?
This is going to be weird, but probably the most relaxed I've ever been in my adult life is rush hour in the metro in Hong Kong, because I knew where I was going, and Hong Kong, it's still, all the signs are in English and in Chinese, so it's easy to find your way around. And nobody is speaking English around me, so I don't have to pay attention to see if anybody is talking about me or talking to me. And it's just the quietest I've ever felt. Um, and yeah, it was a very, very weird, surprising feeling. I don't want
Mhm.
to live in Hong Kong, but I think being in chaotic seeming places that are running very orderly, actually, I really enjoy. Um,
Mhm. It
but
it feels a little bit like you were in the eye of the storm in a way.
yeah,
Like does that
yeah,
feel accurate?
yeah.
Like
I
your
mean, it was
place of
just
comfort.
so, I was just like sauntering along and everyone's like rushing past me. And I'm not getting in anybody's way, but it's like, it was just very comfortable. Um,
Mhm. That's really interesting.
yeah.
Are there other examples where you're like in the eye of the storm and you realize and you feel at home in that place?
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly felt that way in Alaska, but there's probably a bias there. Even outdoors in Alaska. But I've felt that way in Portugal, outside riding motorcycles through the
Mhm.
through the Algarve. Um, I mean, on roads on the southern coast of Portugal. Can try and say that less pretentiously. Uh, yeah. So I think it's like, I think what it is are moments of just extreme flow where I'm also not, no one's necessarily relying on me in those moments beyond the basic don't do harm to others kind of thing. So I think
Yeah.
those kinds of moments have been really, I've had a lot of them in my life, but fewer as I've grown older because, as you age, you tend to have more responsibilities and stuff. So it's,
Mhm.
what about you? Have you ever had those moments?
Um, it's interesting. Like I feel like Hong Kong, um, I don't know how different it is from China because I've never been to Hong Kong, but I feel like this is my experience design story of being at the metro in Beijing, which is Um, I didn't know that people don't queue for the subway tickets. So I queued and then I watched like 40 or 50 people just like stream ahead of me and push their way forward to the ticket counter. This was in 2004, so I'm sure everything's automated, but in 2004 you had to like literally buy a ticket from a person at a window.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was I was pretty embarrassed at my ethnography skills at the time. I was not as good of a UX researcher at the time because I it took me so long to realize that there wasn't a queue and that in fact almost nowhere in China anyone queue. Like queuing is not it is not built into the culture there the way that it is into
Yeah.
that I was born in the US. So, um, I don't know if that answers your eye like, is that an eye of the storm question? I feel like if I have been lucky enough to do, like, actual ethnography in my life, but I look back on examples like that, I mean, like, just
Mm-hmm.
living in China for 3 months, like, there were all sorts of things that were so, like, unusual or felt bizarre to me or, like, it was like, every day was an adventure in figuring out, like, oh, like, how's this gonna go?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so maybe that was like a 3-month experience of being in the eye of the storm. But yeah, like that's the first thing that comes to mind. But I haven't thought of that story in so long. Like your Hong Kong Metro story reminded me of that.
I think that, I mean, this was what, 2018, the last time I was there, which isn't that long ago, but I feel like it's less chaotic than what you are describing. But things are also a little bit more automated, to your point. It's certainly not as organized as Japan is, where people queue, and you better queue because that's what's expected. And then I come back to the US, I'm like, get in line, people. You know, like, come on. How hard is
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Um,
everything's so relative.
yeah, and you know, I think one of the things you were explaining that, and I was thinking about how, I got into this UXy thing in 1999, and I think my first international trip after that was something like in 2002 or 2003, and I felt like I traveled differently after having been trained as a researcher, where especially those times when I started to feel like I was panicking, I don't think I put it in these terms at the time, but like I would put my researcher hat on, pause, take a deep breath, and just go into full observation mode and say, what am I seeing? What is the pattern here? Because there is a pattern, because it's people trying to get stuff done. I just am not engaging with whatever the pattern is. And, there's certainly, I guess what I'll call outliers, but for the most part, that ethnographic perspective or that training helped me acclimate to my surroundings a lot easier, because I
Mhm.
would just go into that observation mode and
Mhm.
and ask questions, and you know as opposed to just blundering my way through.
Yeah, I do agree. Like the training to be an ethnographer, it's so fascinating. Like it's so, yeah, because I feel like what it did for me is it helped me start to think in systems and just realize there is a
Yeah,
system, like just like you said, like there is a pattern. Like how can I get enough perspective to see what's really going on, or who can I ask to explain it to me?
yeah, yeah. I just thought of, I took my kid to on a trip, and one of the places we went was to Paris, and we had to go from the airport to where we were staying, and we were going to use the metro to do it. And it really wasn't clear like how to buy the tickets. And I just immediately like went up and was trying to do it. I know enough French that I could figure out what the screen was saying, and then I found the English button, which made it a lot easier. And something was not working, and people just kept like stepping in front of us and doing things, and I'm just like, what? And so I just said, come on, kid. And then I also asked my kid to come with me. Wah, wah. And we just stepped back against the wall, spent 2 minutes just watching people, and like, oh, okay, we got it now. And I don't remember what it was, but there was just something really unexpected about the experience, that my jet lagged self was not, again, going back to the ability to have good sleep, my jet lagged self was not connecting with what was going on. And,
Mhm.
and again, like I'm thinking about, like, we're always like, I feel like a lot of, not just designers, but people who make products, think that the person who's going to be using their product is fully engaged in it, not going to be distracted, is well fed, well rested, excited and ready to engage with the experience. and that's what they designed for. Forgetting that that's not actually how humans work.
Right.
Not that you need to design for every single experience, but whatever. It's taking
Well,
some of these things into account at least.
well, yeah, I mean, I think this is like basic experience design is, yeah, I think this is really important. Like the fact that like at the French airport, at like the Parisian airport, it's that challenging to make it onto the metro. Like that is a real experience design opportunity to improve.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, at
I'm sure
least for
some
me,
people are like, screw it, I'm gonna go get a taxi. Like this is too hard.
probably.
Um, or, you know, at some point somebody's gonna like get so angry at one of those machines.
Yeah. We probably should have taken a taxi, but I wasn't ready to start speaking French because it had been, about 20 years since I had used French at all. So um, I was like, let's just not talk to people for the next 5 days, and then I'll get in the swing of things and can order a cafe, s'il vous plaît. Um, what else? I mean, this is the other thing about Hong Kong, right? Because it's like you point at things and you say one, and great, you're done.
Yeah.
So
In
there's
Hong
so
Kong,
much you can do with just
yeah.
pointing, and
Yeah.
yeah,
The other thing it's funny, like when I was in China, I learned you can count to 10 on one hand. Like they have special like hand gestures. Do they have that in Hong Kong as well?
probably I don't recall that, but I know what you're
Okay.
talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. Like
I
just
don't
like
know
the
how to do it, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, I forgot how to do it, but like just the versatility of how like symbols like you can go to other places and people have like the same hands everywhere, but they
Hmm.
make different meaning of it. Um,
Right,
but anyways, I'm not ready to let go of the Parisian metro story because that is so wild that it was that hard of an experience. Like
right.
that is an absolute experience design
Well,
fail.
and my initial reaction at the time, and my reaction even now, is I was doing something wrong, which putting on my UX hat is incorrect.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, yeah, I've had
Yeah.
multiple kiosk moments where it's like, what is happening right now? And a lot of them I've been jet lagged, where I reach in my pocket with my left hand and my wallet's not there, and I start freaking out, and I turn to the person I'm traveling with, and I'm like, I cannot find my. Never mind. It's
It's
like
like
again, sleep.
yeah. My thing is I'll be looking for my sunglasses, but they're like on my hat or something. Like that's my signature move.
That's yeah. I mean, we yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm gonna start opening a rabbit hole of ways that I don't fit into this world. I mean, how the world is not designed for me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like this is actually a good segue because I have another teacher aphorism that I think goes in that I like really fits what we're talking about, which is the idea that one is none. And the time that this came up is with fire making. Like if you're
Mm,
going to be in any sort of like survival situation, you want to make sure you have multiple ways to make a fire. So, because like matches could get wet or you
right.
could lose something. The teachers are really big into ferro rods, which I think is what they use on alone. So if there's any alone watchers out there, that's the ferro rod technique. But then, um there's being able to do the kits where you do like the friction fire.
Hmm.
um that's incredibly hard, by the way. Like there was, I like it hurt my hands so much and I didn't even get a coal. I was like not my preferred way. So like I feel like this does relate to experience design and what we're talking about because like I think in a lot of ways like because certain design paths can be so rigid and that there really is only one way to do it. And if you
Yeah.
have like branching tree logic and somebody goes over here but they really need to be over here, like how do you offer them a path? So I feel like that's another another one that I try to bring back with me is the idea that one is none.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course there can be like some beautiful designs where if it's simple, maybe one is fine. But I don't know. I keep coming back to that Parisian kiosk, and it's like, no, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
there's some sort of like design fail that has happened there. If it's not designed for people who are jet lagged, like make the buttons really big and make it really,
Mm-hmm.
really easy, people.
Right. And make it so that maybe there's some mask you can wear because the guy who's standing 5 feet away and peeing against the wall
Oh
is
God.
like, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stimulation in trying to make these decisions. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Or
yeah,
maybe you do need to have a human there, and maybe you don't need to automate everything. Maybe the idea of one and none and one is none in this situation is that like only having a kiosk as a way to get on the metro at the airport is not the right way to go. And
right.
maybe you do need to actually have a ticket window that's staffed so people have more than one way to get a ticket.
Yeah. And not to pick on the Parisian metro here at all, but I mean, what is, I'll ask this semi rhetorically, what is the point of the metro? Is the point to be efficient? Is the point to be lower costs? Like, those are probably some things to consider. Or is the point to move people from where they're at to where they want to be? And what is the best way to do that for the most people?
Right.
And I think we live in worlds oftentimes where the answer is just throw some technology at it. But not that we need to be throwing people at it. I don't mean like that. Anyway, but putting a human back into the mix, especially in times when it's, I'm on a chat bot trying to get something done with my ISP, and I just have to type person, 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 and then eventually it's like, oh, well, let me connect you with somebody. It's like, I've already done all the things you tell me to do. I need to talk to a person.
Right.
Um, and it's all that friction in the way that is put there to reduce their costs, not to help people.
Right.
Because they think that we'll help most people, and maybe that's true, but yeah, I don't know. I guess this kind
Yeah.
of goes back to, are we designing? This is not the most elegant way to say this, but are we designing experiences for people? Are we designing things that are impactful for people, or are we designing things for businesses to make money? And I know the answer to that question. Capitalism. Am I right?
Ah, it does sound like capitalism. I think I just had higher expectations for the Parisian Metro. I mean, hopefully you don't have a bunch of Parisian Metro listeners to the
Well,
podcast who were
I mean,
offended.
hopefully I do, who can come in and be like, you're so right. No,
who
offensive.
are who are gonna like, hey, maybe I feel like you've already offered them like the jobs to be done framework. Like, what is this job? What's
Yeah.
the overall job
Yeah.
that you're
First
trying to
off, bigger
accomplish?
buttons.
Yeah.
Second off, a process thing. Third off, a urinal right next to it, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, I bet whoever designed this, they weren't considering the urinal situation.
No,
Like, it's a
they
long
weren't.
flight. It is a
Right.
long flight.
And honestly, I guarantee you, if there was anybody who was doing some research around that and just stood and watched the kiosk for an hour, they'd be like, yeah, we probably need to put a urinal there.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
mean, I have a new idea. Like, I'm like, what if when you're buying your ticket to Paris, like, can you also like, can they just like include
Mm-hmm.
a metro,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
like one like all inclusive metro ticket just for your first one way on the
Mm-hmm.
metro, and then they just hand it out on the plane to everybody who
Done
did
and
the
done.
add-on. So sorry
Yeah.
to like go immediately to the technological solve, but I'm like just wondering how can my trip to Paris, my
How
next trip
might
to
we?
Paris be,
Right.
how might my next trip to Paris
So,
not be urine filled?
so urine fill. Yeah. I'm looking to reduce the urine content in my vacationing. Um,
Just other people's urine, just like, yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
me, I'm going to drink a lot of water, a lot of
Yeah.
walking, so we'll be fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, well,
But
on that note, that's a good
yeah.
segue.
Okay. Okay.
Actually,
Where are
it's
we
a
going
terrible
now?
segue, but we're going to go with it. So thanks. We're going to play. We're going to do 7 plus or minus 2 questions
Okay.
because calling it that makes me laugh. There are no wrong answers to any of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever comes to mind is the right answer. Personal, professional, doesn't matter.
Okay.
And you can say, Matthew, that's a dumb question. I'm not going to answer that.
Well, what if I distract you by saying I actually met Mark Lepper, who is the original cognitive psychologist who came up with who published the original research on 7 plus or minus 2. Could I just distract you with like the history of the cognitive load research?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah,
I'm going to save
because
that
it's funny
anecdote
because
for
like
later.
I do these on every episode and I say it's 7 plus or minus 2. Some people get it, some people don't. And I don't think I've ever explained what it is, which is fine because, this is not educational. Go away if you think it's educational. Um, but yes, I do want to hear this. Go for it now. Let's do it now.
Okay. I mean, there's really not that much to it, but like these cognitive frameworks or these heuristics
Mhm.
and all these studies of biases. This is like an area that I went to graduate school in, is in judgment and decision making. And so as part of that, I did end up just like having a conversation once with Mark Lepper, who's like most well known for the 7 plus or minus 2 finding. And so these things that like are permeated through our work. And, I feel like the 7 plus or minus 2, like I've heard that from all sorts of people, not just UX
Mhm.
folks, but like, like these things have human origins. Um, and, some of it is like they'll be inspired by, like professors will be inspired by like common wisdom and then bring it into the lab and try to document it. So it's not that it has no history, but
Right.
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's just like you said if I didn't like any of the questions, I could pass. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, well then this gives me, if I'm going to pass, I'm going to bring in my Mark Lepper story.
Excellent. I love it. I love breaking the rules on this thing. So, because there are no rules.
All right. So between 5 to 9 questions, I'm ready.
That's correct. All right. First question. Who did you help recently and how did it make you feel?
Uh, I feel like actually I have a book to plug. I helped a friend by
Yes,
writing a
please.
review of their book, which is called Hindu Myths. His name is Blake Praharaj, and he wrote this new book of like retelling Hindu myths. And Blake and his wife are Sarah are very dear friends. And they like the book came out very recently, and apparently like it is so important to get like a certain number of reviews and a certain number of ratings on Amazon to like, and
Yeah.
you need it by this day. And so they asked all of their friends to help them out. And I think like it was just like, oh my gosh, like yes, like I have the book. The book is great, and yeah, I think that was probably like a recent example. And how did I feel? Great. Like I want to go back to them and like see how book sales are doing.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's a
but
good
I'm
one.
definitely feeding the algorithm. Like that is an example. That's the other part of the story. Is like how do
Yeah.
you like what does it mean to help your friends in 2026? Like you help your
Like
friends.
and subscribe. Yeah. 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 I won't
That's what
drive you to
help
the
looks like.
airport, but I will like and subscribe. That's where our relationship's at.
Yeah. But you know what? 5-star reviews for all of my friends. Like I promise.
Thank you. I mean, I'll send you some books.
Okay.
Um, okay. All right. Next question. What's your least favorite thing about your profession?
Mm, I mean, I feel like it's like I feel like being a UX researcher, I feel like it's the the challenge is, will people actually use the insights? So I think it's always like at that
Yeah.
at that point because there's so much that's like outside of our control. So I think it's really like it's such like an important moment about like the insights and then what happens next.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like it's so much about like relationships.
Hmm.
It's so much about timing. I think maybe that's the other thing. It's just like coming to a place of just accepting like sometimes the timing is perfect and sometimes the timing it's like too early or too late. So I think that's I don't know. I think that's something that also took me a while to learn. It's just like how essential
Yeah,
timing is.
yeah. Two of my things, like when I'm sussing out a client or uh, looking for a job, one of the questions I'll ask is, to what extent does research impact the roadmap? Because it's a pretty quick way to understand, is research listened to? The other question I will often ask, particularly on the client services side of things, is how open are you to being changed by what we find out with the research? I don't always put it that way, but um, I'm really trying to suss out, like, are we doing this because there's a checkbox that needs to be checked? Or are we doing this because you're really looking for guidance? And I think it certainly would have behooved me to have learned those things earlier in my career, but to ask about those things. But yeah, are you ready? Apologies to everyone. That was probably the most educational piece that we'll get into, and we'll move on. All right. Question number 3. What's the most beautiful thing you've seen this week that had nothing to do with a screen,
The
or recently?
daffodils. Yeah, well, I mean, within the last week, that's a very time constrained thing. Okay, very recently. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Brighton Bush Hot Springs, up in the mountains, and there was snow. And there's many beautiful things about Brighton Bush
Mm,
in case people haven't been. But um, the one thing in particular were the ice puddles. And I grew up in Colorado, and so I can send you this audio clip if you want to hear it, but it's the sound of like my my snow boot crunching into the ice and just that sound of like the so that would be the most beautiful sound, but the most beautiful sight would be there were all of these like massive there's just like these massive puddles that had ice like maybe like 2 or 3 inches thick, and there
mm,
was moss that had frozen underneath it. And so I just kind of played with the ice and like pulled out these chunks. I can send you some photos if you want to put them in the show notes, but
sure.
they were just like these really extraordinary ways that like the water had frozen. And, in Portland, like sometimes we get snow and sometimes we get ice, but I think it was
Right.
like really special to be up in the mountains, just in this weekend away and be really isolated out in out in nature, which is my jam. Also at Brighton Bush, three meals a day prepared for you. It's pretty amazing. Like
Yeah.
that's really my jam. Like outside, like I get to be outside all day and then just get to come inside for meals. And so I think in terms of like what was the most beautiful thing that I saw, like just getting to interact and like see how the ice would change, like if I stepped on it,
Mm.
or um, or just seeing like what had frozen underneath it, and yeah, just like really getting to experience that awe and really feeling connected to like the very young part of me who lived in Colorado till I was 8 years old.
That's a good one. I mean, these are interview questions. I shouldn't be praising you for your answers. I apologize. Uh, all right. Next question. What's a decision you've made that prioritized business needs over user goals, and how did you feel about it? And
Hmm.
if there's NDA stuff, like I said, you don't have to answer.
Yeah. Mm, I don't really have an example of that right
Okay.
now. Like I'll pass.
Okay. Next question. Who should I talk with next?
Do you know Caitlin Krauss?
Mm-mm.
She wrote a book called Digital Wellbeing, and she's a researcher on awe and wonder.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Ooh.
So she's an expert in like empathic computing. I had to look up what empathic computing was because I didn't know. But in terms of people who are doing experience design, I think Caitlin has a really unique take on technology, and I would be happy to message her on your behalf.
Yes, please. That sounds cool.
Yeah, her book Digital Wellbeing is really, I mean, I think it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like, how do you
Hmm.
build your own well-being in this era of like technology at our fingertips? And I think she gave a TED talk about it like two years ago.
Yeah. Well, I've got a client for her already. It's the Paris Metro.
Can
That's
we
what we
bring
in the
more
biz call a
awe and
callback.
wonder?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? If there was so much awe and wonder in the metro, then like who would be impressed by Baron von Hausmann's Parisian streets and the
That's
avenues?
fair. That's fair.
So I
That's
think
fair.
they're
We
trying to
don't want to
like keep,
overshadow.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're keeping expectations as low as
Yeah.
possible. Like, like the
So
metro
that when you get
employees,
above ground, you're like, wow, look at these
you're
streets. Look at that museum. It's so easy to break into if you've got this ladder.
you're like
Uh,
Hausman was a genius. Did you know that they almost got Hausman to rebuild San Francisco after the 1906 fire? Like there were
I did
people in
not
San
know that.
Francisco that
Wow.
wanted Hausman to like make San Francisco look like Paris. But the business owners of San Francisco were like, no, we need to have our businesses back open immediately. And so that was an example of prioritizing business needs over the user experience.
Yeah.
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 I'm going to give Hausman as my example for the
Okay.
last
All right.
question that I
Okay.
passed
All
on.
right.
That
That's fair.
everything goes back to the Parisian architecture.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been saying since 1973 when I was two. All right. Last question. Imagine that it's a year from now. What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to pass on this one too.
Okay. There's no wrong answers to any questions.
My answer will be Houseman then.
Okay.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
I'm gonna let
Fair.
go of all the housemen. I'm gonna not
Yeah.
carry around housemen anymore next year.
Houseman can walk on his own. Okay. Like, enough.
Yeah, his legacy does not depend on me in
That's right.
2027.
That's right. Especially if you're not going to get a cut. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah. All right. Well, let's stop talking.
Okay.